folks, welcome back to the channel. Frank here. I'm in the basement part of the home addition and I'm getting ready to start trimming out the windows. And my lens has got dirt on it. Maybe that's a little bit better. Hey folks, these are windows, standard double hung, and they're in a 8-inch block wall with a 4-inch brick on the outside. Most of the basement walls are made out of 12-inch block that are filled with concrete. But on this side, since it's a walkout basement, it's 8-inch block. But with the brick on the outside, it does make it 12 inches, roughly 12 inches thick. So there's about a 7-inch jamb necessary to case these windows out. We'll go over here and look briefly at this window. I started on this window this morning just to get some pieces prepared to be able to talk intelligently about it. So you can see how far out the casing has to extend. I do have a piece of 5/4. What I'm using is all finger jointed pine that's been primed, so it is all clear, paint grade lumber that you would typically use for this application. So this is available in numerous widths, mostly in 16-foot lengths, and you can see I have here on the floor some 5/4 by 4 and some 1-inch 1 by 10 and a piece of 5/4 by 10 that I cut 2 sills out of, or they're called stool. Stool is the name for the molding that's sold for this purpose. Now, most of the stool molding comes in 2, 3, 4 inches, 5-inch widths. It does not come in a 7 or 8-inch width. This is 7.5 inches roughly wide. So I've just got this piece sitting here on the base of the window opening. I do have another one over here. And because of the way they shimmed the window in the opening, it requires a 2x6 basically to bring the sill up to the proper height. I don't know, they built the window opening oversize. I suppose that's what happened. So this is just a spacer, and the other piece of so-called stool or windowsill molding is sitting here. I just did a bull nose on the edge of this piece of lumber, and I had already done the same on this other one. And I'll show you as we work through these windows. And there's 2 windows down here and a door. And this door has the same, not quite as much jamb extension required here, maybe 5 inches or 6 inches, not the 7 inches the other ones require. But after we get these 3 done, we'll head upstairs and work on the other windows. That'll be in another episode. I did run these on the shaper to do the bull nose. You could use a router, but I happen to have the shaper with the proper molding bit, so that's fine. You'll see that 2x6 spacer leaves a gap underneath, but that will be covered up by the apron. So the components of trimming out a window, there are jambs, which are on the side here, and I'll put a piece up here to show you. So the jamb fits here, one on each side. The head is a board here which goes across the top and sits on top of the 2 legs of the jamb. And then this is the stool or the windowsill. And then the apron fits underneath the stool and is flat on the wall. It'll cover that gap down there. So I'm going to just talk a few minutes about the parts on this window and start assembling them. I'll tell you what I've done so far in terms of measurements and cutting, and then we'll get into the other window where we'll actually measure and cut, and I'll show you more detail how that's done. There are at least 3 different ways to extend the jambs on a window. I'm going to do one of the ways here to show you this method, which I think is the most accurate, but there's other ways to do it. So in this method, we measure the width of the window, allowing for a reveal, which is the space on the frame, which is still remains exposed after the jamb is placed against the window frame. There's a little reveal here. On this jamb, there is the gap between the flat area where it starts here. There's a little bevel, and then there's a flat. So the amount of flat exposed, and I have it set here to 1/8 of an inch. You see my pencil mark. So I've got a pencil mark there, I've got it up here, and I've got it at the bottom as well. And I've done the same, made the same mark on the other side of the window. So there's my mark there. I've got marks at 3 places on that jamb. I want the inside edge of this board to line up on those marks so that there's a consistent exposure or reveal on the window frame, on the window itself. So the method that's I'm using here, which entails establishing your reveal, measuring the width that's exposed from reveal mark to reveal mark, making the same measurement up here and at the bottom, and building a frame that is that size, and then installing the frame in the window opening. All right, so that's the method I'm using, where you measure the reveal, the dimensions of the reveal on the window, and build a frame which fits that, assemble it on the floor, put it in the opening, and shim it on the sides, plumb, and square. Another way to do it is to take measurements from the reveal to the opening and install shims along the sides, on both sides, and then fasten your jamb extensions against those shims. Now that, for the most part, assumes that the window is square in the opening, and the opening is relatively square as well. So that's a second way to do it. And the third way I would say is don't worry so much about the reveal on the windows. It's pretty consistent here, so I could just not worry about shimming anything, just nail this right here to the jamb. And that's kind of a fast way to do it if you don't care that your reveal is consistent around the windows. Now, you can only do that if the window opening is pretty square and the window's pretty evenly mounted, centered in the opening, in the framing opening. So in this case, that would probably work in this window, and it would be the easiest way to do it. So those are the 3 most common methods. So I'm building this frame. I'm going to assemble it on the floor with nails and screws and then bring it up into the opening. So I've got my 2 jambs cut to length, and when we do the next window, I'll show you the process for deciding how long they need to be and that sort of thing. So I'm ready to assemble, and I've got the proper reveal here that's actually going to be established by the length of this, of the head, which hasn't been cut to length yet, so I need to do that. Or width, so the width has to be cut as well. So this will have to be shimmed away from the wall in order for this reveal to be correct. Same with this side as well. It has to be brought in like that to be correct. So the next step is to go ahead and cut the head to the proper length and begin to assemble the components on the floor. I'm going to adjust this to the proper reveal. Okay. Make sure it's square to the window. So I've got this one set to the reveal I want. No, that moved. Don't want that. All right, outside to outside on the 2 jamb legs, 35 1/4. Outside to outside up the top, 35 1/4. Got it square up here. That is square. And that's square. Double check. Yep, 35 1/4. So the head jamb will be cut to 35 1/4 width or length. And got 7 5/8, which is the same over here, 7 5/8. And we said 35 1/4. Running out of daylight here, so I'm going to quit. We'll come back in the morning. But at least I can see my laser, which is tough to see out here in the daylight. Okay, so that's the Jamb extension all cut and in place. All right, so of course I've got light fixtures stacked here, waiting for the electricians to come back. They're supposed to hang all the light fixtures. All right, so we're going to place this on the floor where we can drill and screw and fasten it together. I'm fast running out of daylight. I only have one work light in here, one big LED work light, so the lighting is unfortunately a little limited by that. So we'll take this off. I'm just marking these A and B so I can get them back in the same position. So I just put a couple nails here and here. I think I forgot to turn the camera on. All right, so I have lines on here for where the bottom, the leg of the jamb is going to fit. I'm going to drill a couple holes to locate. All right, that holds it together while I get some screws in. These are 2.5, where's the label on here? 6 by 2.25 finish head, trim head, square drive screws. The way this is simpler, is that my reveals, as long as I push it, if I leave it like that, the reveals are wrong, but if I pull it over, my reveal is the same there as it is here at the top. And so all it requires is a few shims and some nails. And as far as jamb extensions, this one's done. Now, we'll have to, obviously there will be casing over here all the way around, and we'll do that in another video. All right, let's take some measurements here. It should be similar to what we had on the other side. Got not quite 36, let's see. Get this out of the way. Got 35 3/4. Okay, so let's make some marks. It is a wet and rainy day outside today. All right, so we're going to work inside. Going to go ahead and take some measurements. I'm going to mark my reveal, which I'm set for 1/8 of an inch on the other window. So most of these measurements should be the same, right? I mean, these windows are the same. So we'll just double check. "34 inches. That's what we had on the other one, so reveal 34 inches flat. That's pretty consistent. I said I had 35 3/4 down here for the stool. All right, down here for the stool, I need a couple measurements. I need the width of the opening, which I said was 35 3/4. And the depth to the windowsill, or to the window, is like 7 3/4. What do we got over here? 7 7/7/8. Yeah, 7 7/8. Yeah, 7 3/4. 7 3/4. What do we have up here? Yeah, kind of 7 3/4. So that's what we'll do. This drywall's bulged out from where they cut it with the roto tool. Okay, 7 3/4. And the opening was 35 3/4. All right, so let's mark this. Let's first find the horns, or the little pieces that stick out. Have not determined the final size for those yet. All right, so this is 42 inches long, so the center is 21, and I'm 35 3/4, so half of that is 18 minus 1/8. So we'll come in here, 18 minus 1/8. minus an eighth. Give me the total opening of 35 3/4. I would do this over on my little portable workbench, but lighting in here is so bad. All right, and we said the depth was, I didn't write that down, 7 3/4. Right there. Right there. All right, let's see, is our end cut square? Yes, it is. All right, so that's a section to be cut. So our end cut square here. Yes. You always want to check your end, make sure it's cut square. All right, so again, this is the area to be cut out. Now, there are certain cuts that are important to be clean cuts, straight cuts, and there's other cuts which are not as important because they're not visible. They'll be covered up by something else. So these two cuts, for the most part, will be covered up because the jamb leg will come down here and cover up this cut, and the casing will cover up this cut. Now we will need to cut a 45 off here and glue back on a piece to do a return. So for the most part, this cut is, you're relatively safe. It doesn't have to be super accurate. Now along the back here, this goes up against the window, and that gap will be visible. So, and will get caulked, in the end. I mean, as they say, caulk and paint make me the carpenter I ain't. So, there's some forgiveness there, but it's, you want it to be as straight as possible. On the last sill or stool, I went ahead and scribed this line, this mark here, because it wasn't square in the opening. The window was not square in the opening. All right, so there's multiple ways to make these cuts. My miter saw is not set up since I'm inside. It's off my stand. It's pouring rain out. I'm going to use my circular saw, make these cuts most of the way, then jigsaw to finish them up. Let's see how this fits. All right, I'm a little bit snug. Let me just take a hair off this edge. All right, so got that in here is pretty close. Along here, pretty even, up against the wall. So I'm going to say that's good. Okay, so that's the stool. All right, we got stool in here. Now we want to measure to the reveal across here. So I said where this bevel meets the flat area, I'm going to leave 1/8 of an inch reveal across here. Got 59 and 7/8. What do we have over here? 59 and 60 and 7/8. 60 and 7/8. So we'll cut the legs to 60 and 7/8. And then from there, of course, we'll cut them to 7 and 5/8, 7 and 5/8, which is what we had over there, or 7 3/4, which is what we have down here. So we'll probably cut them to 7 3/4. Then we'll rip them to 7 3/4 width. All right, so we'll cut these to 60 and 7/8 by 7 3/4. Looks like both legs are going to be the same. And that'll bring us to the point where we started on the other window, cutting the head, the jamb head, and assembling the parts to a frame on the floor and putting them up in the window. All right, folks, this is a good stopping point from starting with the already measured and fitted stool and cutting the head of the jamb head board and assembling the frame. We fit it into the window. We haven't fastened it in place yet, so we still have to do that. Over here we measured the window opening, fitted the stool, and made the measurements that we need for the 2 jamb legs, which takes us to the point where we were on the other window. So it kind of gives you an idea of the process. We'll come back next time and finish up this jamb frame. We'll install both of them. We also need to cut the returns on the horns on the stool. So we'll do those things next time, and that'll give you the complete picture of the jamb extension work. And I hope we'll have casing at that point to case out these windows, which is the molding that goes around the frame. So until next time, thank you for watching, and we'll see you then.